So if there's an agent listening to this and they're saying, Suzanne, I get 100 inbound phone calls each and every day.
Are you kidding? I'm running 50 listings. I have a project that's got 50 apartments and I'm calling that one listing.
So you're saying if you can do it, there's no excuse?
There's no excuse why you can't do it. You must get in the habit of doing it. I'm never in the business of pressuring people to take offers that they don't want. I think that it actually fails miserably. The owners will see that you're pressuring them. They don't want to make decisions under pressure. So I'll go and speak to them and say, look, find what a buyer wants, then go and find the listing. It doesn't have to be the other way around. Match the buyer to the property. Just find the property for them. So that to me is better than standing there on Saturday and hoping for people to turn up.
Suzanne, you're the director and licensee of Abode Property, where you specialise in both standard residential and off-the-plan project sales across both the St George and the Sutherland Shire regions. You're regarded as one of the top agents in Australia, full stop. You've got a personal best year of over 400 million in settled sales volume, and you've been recognised by REB in 2024 as Australia's #1 female agent and the #5 overall agent in the entire country. So firstly, thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're having us here.
It's mind-boggling to me. I don't even sometimes understand those, how I've achieved that. It's mind-boggling to me.
Well, hopefully we can unpack it in this conversation. So the first place I want to start, Suze, is I've heard you say on another podcast, you said, if I'm in the car, I've got a call list with me, basically. Yep. Now, that might not be an always thing, and maybe that's something we can dig into a little bit, but this is just such a simple, practical point that agents listening can put straight into their business after they've listened to this. And I've heard it from a number of Australia's top agents. You've got Alexander Phillips that talks about this kind of thing. You've got Dib Chidiak on this train as well. You've got the likes of Josh Teslin and Alex Jordan that have like a little emoji version of this that they do. But point being, if you're addressing a room full of agents that are listening to this and they're not doing this at all, or they're only doing it really inconsistently, like, is there anything in particular you would want to say on this topic of having call lists with you on the go in the car?
The call lists are not only with me in the car. The call list will be with me if I'm at the hairdresser, if I'm walking. That call list will be as a text to me by my assistant. As I'm going through it, by the end of the day, she needs to give me an updated list. Who do I still have to call for that day? And last night there were 3 people I did not get back to. It was 7:30 and I rang all of them, left messages or said, do you mind if I give you a call in the morning, etc. So you can't be a successful agent without having call lists. The call lists are your life. I have actually more than one call list. I have my immediate action call list, that they're the people I have to call today for various things.
Urgent.
They're absolute urgent. They are things that are currently in play, listings that I've done submissions for that I need to follow up. They are deals that I'm trying to put together. They are solicitors that I'm trying to sort out details with. Those are the urgent call lists. And then I have another call list, which is more we call it the to-do list. And they're people that I've got diarised that I need to call this week because they've mentioned call them early December, so we can get a plan going, etc. I've also got already for January, and Georgia, my assistant, will tell you I am absolutely red hot on these January hot list, it's called. You must put this person on the January hot list, January hot list, January hot list. And she says, got it. So that is people, when I return back from holidays, and I'm going to have a bit of a break, to be fair, this year, that those people are the first port of call. They are waiting to list their properties, and I know if I don't call them, they will see that as not a great sign, and that Suzanne said she'd call us and she hasn't done it. It must be done as my highest priority. My hot call list will be addressed. So it might take me 2 days to get through that hot call list, because I would potentially have 30 to 40 vendors that want to list with me early next year, right, already on that hot list. And not all of those listings I'm going to successfully get, even though they've told me we're running with you, Suzanne. Things change. The best things we can always say in real estate is roll with the punches, right? My mentor taught me that.
Yeah.
Alan Williams, roll with the punches. So you can't go and shake the tree, find some more business. So you're not going to list everything. The call lists are absolutely vital. But it's not just in the car. But in the car, if I'm, you certainly can't be looking at these lists when you're at the traffic lights, etc. If I see a break where I can park under a tree and I've got 20 minutes before the next appointment, even before here, I was parked up around the road. I'm talking to a vendor and you saw me still on the phone to her when I came in, right? So I'm on the side of the road, trying to do what I can for every minute I've got before an appointment. And that is how you have to use your time efficiently if you want to be a top agent.
There's so much of that dead time where an appointment runs slightly early.
Yeah.
You've got like a really awkward period of time. It can be like 9 minutes.
Exactly.
So do you have a printed list with you, or is this all digital?
I have I use an old-fashioned solicitor's pad and a pen and just write crap all over that. But certainly I have my call list is also text to me regularly throughout the day, and I'm in constant communication with my main PA, Georgia. Holly, of course, helps me. We'll talk about her a little bit further down the track. But all day with Georgia, I'm telling her who needs to go off the list. Get that one off the list, do this, do that. That's the action I need for this one. Because a lot of the things that I'm talking about will require me to ring back to the PA and get her to provide information or follow up or do something. So all day, we're both aligned with the call list. At the end of the day, she's going to give me the call list of who's still outstanding. First thing in the next morning, she's going to cover who did you not get on the call list, who do we bring forward. So I've already spoken to her at 7:30 this morning on the 3 people I couldn't speak to last night. And that was because I was trying to get a couple of properties exchanged that had a couple of issues. And they have to be the main priority, is getting those sales over the line.
So in the morning when you're putting this together, is who goes on the call list? Is that your brainchild, or is that Georgia, your executive assistant?
My brainchild. Georgie will add things if emails have come in where somebody says, I need to talk to you today, Suzanne, blah, 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 because she addresses all the emails. I read the emails, of course, first thing in the morning. But Georgia will be involved in that as well. But certainly I'm getting phone calls constantly and text messages constantly, so the call list is getting added to constantly. But you got to do it in a matter of priority as well. You've got to know how to prioritise who you're getting back to first and why you're doing it that way.
And we've introduced Georgia as a character in this conversation, your executive assistant. And what I find really interesting, behind every top agent in the country is usually a world-class executive assistant. And I was listening to Alexander Phillips even talking the other day. He said, without Prue Kelly, his executive assistant, he said, I'd probably only do 100 transactions. And I'm like, you do 200 transactions. That's a big attribution that you're saying falls on the shoulders of the executive assistant or the ops manager. How important is that character trait? Because you've just said there, Georgia is so proactive with you. She's almost like a salesperson with you. She's following you up, playing goalkeeper, ensuring no leakage, versus, the types of executive assistants maybe that they can get handed a to-do list and do really well with that. I feel that's only 50% of the puzzle when it comes to servicing someone like yourself. So if agents listening to this want to go to that next level, how important is it for them to have an executive assistant who's going to be really proactive and putting important tasks to do on their plate and almost being a second brain, a second sales brain?
That person has to be so aligned with the way that you think. So it is so important if you want to be a top agent, the word top agent, let's just say if you want to really perform really well and, do better at what you love, because you've got to love this job to do better at it, don't you? So the executive assistant, it's not just Georgia. So I have 2 assistants. So I have Holly and Georgia, I should say, have been with me for near 10 years. And they're quite young. So I've nurtured those girls through, but I've known them since they were a young age. They know how I think. Sometimes they say Susie's scary. Like Susie, some of the clients, Susie, you just actually, you can be quite intimidating. It's quite funny. I don't see myself as intimidating, but they say, oh my God, I think they were scared of you, Suzanne. And I said, geez, why? What did I do?
They sighed in fear.
They loved it, but they really like, oh my God, let's just do what she's saying. But the 2 assistants, so Holly does all my submissions, follows up the clients when she sends the submissions, gives them a personal phone call. She's in charge of all my compliance. She confirms all my appointments, and Holly runs with me on a Saturday. I am lost without Holly running with me on a Saturday. I will admit that. If Holly's not with me and I've got a couple of assistants doing opens with me, I never feel as comfortable.
The chemistry isn't there.
No, because Holly knows she's listening when I'm talking to people and she's making notes, because she knows I need that and I want that. So when I follow the clients up, if you've got 18 people in the open house, I've got to know who was who in the zoo. And a lot of people I know when they come in, and I'm going to know. But for people that you don't know, it's important to get those notes. So she knows exactly how I like things run. When I come in, I don't like toilet seats up. I want toilets flushed, and I am a pain when it comes to things like that. When I walk into the office, if there are plates on the sink, I don't like it. So I'm very particular about things like that. So Holly is very important to me. And then Georgia is important to me also in a different way. So she has to think like me all the time. Yet the best people in Georgia's role as executive assistant do not want to be salespeople, in my opinion. Georgia is not a salesperson. She is brilliant at organisation, at writing emails, at thinking logically, on me talking things through with her, but she's not a salesperson and she doesn't want to be. Actually, Holly and I joke. Sometimes she says, I'll help you on a Saturday, and we say, no, George, you're not a salesperson, you're not coming. And she gets very forlorn and upset. But it's a joke. It's a joke in the office. I think the best executive assistants, I don't think that they want to be salespeople. They want to back up somebody and run with somebody. And I could not do the figures that I do without my team. And then I have a third person that assists both of them as well, which is
so you have an
another guy in
assistant
admin.
to the assistants.
Yeah. So he helps with social media stuff that I don't need put out there, and we've actually looked to expand that. We've put him now hiring up yesterday actually to look for a further sales admin and marketing person just to assist the girls. So my two girls work very long hours and they're very dedicated and they're very loyal to me. But I couldn't do what I do without them. They're brilliant.
So you don't have an official sales associate or a co-agent per se. You almost have two administrative-based executive assistants.
Yeah.
Do you know how unique that is?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I have a team, but my office doesn't exist with the Suzanne's team and then everyone else's team, which a lot of the big offices do. So I have a team of 10, but my other agents are all standalone agents, and then there's me running with my EAs and assistants. So, yeah, I don't know why I do it like that, but that's how I've always done it.
It clearly works.
Yeah, it works for me.
Now, there's a quote that I'll badly paraphrase here, and it says, we need to be reminded far more than we need to be taught. And I think that's especially true in real estate. When I think to some of the high-performing agents that might be listening to this, Suzanne, they sort of, in pursuing scale and efficiency in their business as they're doing more and more volume, they'll look to do more things remotely, more things over the phone, and that face-to-face element of their business will just slowly start to fade out of their practice. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it can get to the point where they're so much in the habit and the momentum of doing things digitally and over the phone that they almost forget that it's an option again to get face-to-face for a hard vendor conversation or for a negotiation with the buyer.
Sure.
If you were giving some advice on like how big is that as part of your business and helping you get things done?
Whenever I'm asked about what you would teach, what do you feel that you should teach young agents, or what do you do in your team with your young agents, or what advice have you got for people coming into real estate and how to be successful? What are some of the key things? One of the main things that I will always say is that you cannot replace technology with face-to-face conversations. So often I'll put a buyer and seller together. Often if I'm having trouble getting a deal together, especially say an amalgamation of a development site, and I did this recently, I'm selling a site in Cronulla. Sometimes the person you're selling that development site for, they need to meet the person that they're looking to do a transaction, especially if it involves a longer settlement or some terms where they really feel that they want to eyeball the client and see that there's that level of trust there. So it's not only vendor meetings. Look, I have a lot of elderly clients or older clients, and one of the first things I say to them when I sign up the listing is, listen, let's diarise to catch up every couple of weeks in person. You can either come into the office, grab you a coffee, and the girls will have that coffee ready and for them when they come in, or I'll come to your home if you prefer, and let's just sit down and go over how many people have viewed the property, a bit of a snapshot over the last 2 weeks. Let's do that, and then we can plan what we're doing for the next couple of weeks. People love when you do that. They see that level of care and, that you're not relying on technology, and they don't just have to have reports emailed to them where they're supposed to be able to interpret them. This is a service industry, and you can't service people without meeting them face-to-face. It's like when we meet buyers at a property. That face-to-face interaction has everything to do with why they ultimately trust you to put forward an offer and for you to take that to the vendor. So why wouldn't you do that with your vendors? It's paramount in being successful.
And again, every agent knows this, especially every high-performing agent knows this. It's just sometimes the reminder itself can be valuable. So if an agent listening to this, Suzanne, they had a deal they were working on, let's just say it's $1 million property, and there was like a $30,000 gap or a $40,000 gap. and the buyer and the seller, it's a bit of a stalemate, no one wants to come up or down, would your advice be to them potentially you can unlock that gap by potentially getting face to face with the buyer and the seller? Just go see them both and maybe you can make something happen that you couldn't make happen over the phone.
100%. You know, I'm never in the business of pressuring people to take offers that they don't want. I think it actually fails miserably. The owners will see that you're pressuring them. They don't want to make decisions under pressure. So I'll go and speak to them and say, look, we've had 76 groups through the property. We've tried a combination of open houses and private appointments. We've tried a variety of different projecting the property to the market in different ways, whether that's with guides, with selling ranges, with no price, with calls to action, whatever. We've done all of those things. And, these are the offers that we've had presented. Now, we've got a couple of decisions we can make here. We've got a couple of ways we can go. We can not take the offer, and I'm happy to keep working on your property. It doesn't worry me how long I work on the property. What worries me is that you get the result that you're happy with. I think in the current market, not a lot of vendors are happy with the results. So we do have to have sometimes that conversation with them that a lot of our owners aren't getting results that they want at the moment, and I think it's important to share that. Some of our owners are, but many of our owners aren't. It's your decision if you want to take the offer. I love it when I give them all those key points, and when they look at how many people have been through the property and the level of offers, it does start to hit home that, wow, maybe our home is not worth as much as we thought it was 6 weeks ago. And Tom Panos, for example, will say, the market is not what it was 6 weeks ago, if you listen to his podcast every Saturday afternoon. And that is absolutely what you need to remind vendors. I love it when a vendor then turns around to say, okay, well, thank you so much, Suzanne. Do you think we should take the offer? And I say, honestly, they say, we trust you, Suzanne. Do you think we should take the offer? And I said, I know I've left no stone unturned and this is the best I've been able to bring. It's up to you guys, but if it was my property, I would take the offer. Please don't feel on the spot. Have a think about it and give me a call this afternoon. The buyer's not going to run away. Let's do that. So they just want to feel that they trust that you've done everything you can to get a result for them. And I would say 9 times out of 10, I'm going to get that offer over the line. I'm not going to say 10 out of 10. That's impossible. 9 times out of 10, they're going to listen to what I'm saying. So trust right from the get-go. It's paramount. You do something to lose their trust, it's going to be real tough to get that offer accepted.
In that response, was this conviction that you genuinely believe it's the right offer, but there's this beautiful blend that comes with that of this trusted advisor that you're not pressuring, it's anti-pressure as well. It's, I genuinely believe in this, but guys, I'm here to serve you, no pressure. If it makes sense for you, let's explore it, let's chat after lunch.
Yeah, I do the same thing with buyers. If they want to buy something off the plan and we take a $5,000 expression of interest deposit, they say, oh, I want to pay it now. They'll be in a marketing suite. I want to pay you the deposit right now on unit 502. I say, you know what? Here's a coffee voucher. Go and have a coffee and go and have a think about it and then come back to me if you still want to pay the deposit. Think about it. It's a lot of money. The unit you're looking at is $3.945 million. Go and think about it and then come back to me. And I want to know if you've got any questions before you put that money down. I don't want to take that money and then you decide that you don't want to go through with it. So go and have a good think about it. And when you do that, once again, you're taking that pressure away, letting them make the decision, and decisions that are made not under pressure are going to be more successful long term.
You're siphoning out that buyer's remorse before it happens.
That's right.
You want them to go through that headspace before they commit on a contract. Coming back to the buyer and the seller meeting each other. So you were referencing this major deal that you did even earlier. I think it was earlier this year on that big development site. Do you think it's appropriate, because all the agents listening to this, the vast majority are residential sales agents, for the mums and dads residential normal sales space, do you think it's do you use it in that scenario as well, where, you'll have vendors of yours that's just a normal couple meeting the buyer who's just a normal couple? Or do you think that's potentially where it stops making sense? It makes sense for a development, but doesn't make sense for residential, or do you use it there as well?
I think if there's problems that come up in the pest and building report and there's solutions that need to be put forward and you have got a bit of a stalemate as to how those solutions are going to be executed, I do think, and I did it recently, there was some asbestos found evident in the pest and building report, and the buyer was very sensitive to the asbestos. The asbestos was actually in the property when the vendors bought the property, so it wasn't a problem for them, but it was a problem for the buyer. So we did actually have the buyer meet the seller, and we go through the steps on what we think is going to suit both parties. And when they got to meet the buyer and see that he was a genuine person and he had genuine concerns, they were actually more happy to assist. So I think it depends on if it's a straight transaction, it's a normal exchange, a normal settlement period.
Yeah, there has to be a hiccup.
There's no need. There's got to be a need for it. But I have no problems in putting them together. No problems at all. Especially too where the vendor might be a builder and the buyer wants a couple of things done and he wants to talk about how those things are going to be done. Put them together. Go there. Get them a coffee. Have a chat. They're going to love it, If I'm selling a new duplex, something like the property that we're sitting in, if I'm selling something like this, I've had clients in here meet the developer about things that they want to get done in this particular property, right? So it is definitely a key to help you getting sales over the line, depending on the situation.
And some real estate agents consider it sacrilege, but as you've just said, there's certain scenarios where it makes a lot of sense. Quote from you, Suzanne, you've said selling a property is now more of a science than it is an art, which is the kind of statement that we love on this show. But even if you follow the process textbook in many cases, you can have something on the market, for many months or even a month or two longer than you thought it was going to be. And you've got this little ritual where you'll wake up at sort of 3 a.m, probably through anxiety, really. Anxiety is your alarm clock. You're up at 3 a.m, put something easy watching on Netflix and just rack your brain as to how you keep moving the campaign forward. There's been a lot of good ideas that I'm sure you've brainstormed during that time, which I'm sure the audience would love to hear. But I think one thing in particular I'm fascinated with as to how you refresh campaigns is your pricing approach. Yeah. You're very proactive and you've got such a big menu of ways that you'll present property purely on price alone.
Yeah.
Like for example, if there's an agent listening to this and they're like, oh, I started with for sale and then I did offers over 1.85 million and they feel like they've tapped out all their options. You're like, mate, look at it. Like there's so many more things you can do.
Absolutely. So often we will start with, certainly start with one approach. 2 weeks later, we're changing that approach. If that hasn't worked, we are immediately changing that approach. A lot of people probably don't realise that many of the properties I'm selling in the current market, because I'm finding the market's quite tough at the moment. There's markets within markets, but the market's quite tough. Many of the properties I'm selling are on private appointments, not open houses. And some of your agents listening to this might think, what? What do you mean? She doesn't do... On this Saturday, I have 3 opens where I'm currently running 50 listings because I'm not finding the calibre of clients attending opens
it's not a productive
as great
use of
as they
time.
should be. I just find it cuts the phone calls out. So if the property's open for inspection, I don't get phone calls. I do deals best when I get phone calls and then I can screen people. Why would they call you if they know it's open on Saturday? Unless they want you to say, oh, can you stay back 10 minutes late or can I check the price on it? You don't really get the phone calls if they can attend. You cull your phone calls. As the market gets harder, I don't want to cull my calls. I want more calls. So I'm generally in the first 2 weeks, I don't do opens. I send it to the database. I try to do private appointments. When I do private appointments, I call it a quasi-open. So I'm going to try to get 3 or 4 groups there at the same time to feel pressure from the other buyers, but it's not an advertised open. And that way I've spoken to the clients. My vendors love that approach because I've spoken to them to make sure that they're in the pocket. I also represent a lot of vendors that have a lot of expensive properties that do not want to open the properties for inspection. I recently just sold an apartment between 6.8 and 7.2 million a couple of weeks ago. I'm not allowed to say the price. That was never open for inspection. It was by private appointment, but often I would have 2 or 3 groups there at the same time. So, but do the private appointments, then I might try a couple of opens if I need to. But the thing on changing rotation of photos, paramount, changing ad copy, but changing the way the price is projected to the market. Usually I will not, in my area, and I can't speak for other areas, obviously the Shire's got a fairly high dollar value, St George and Sutherland Shire, we will start without a price guide. We will say something like, just listed, now selling, or for sale, contact Suzanne, or exclusive database preview. We will say something like that.
And can you talk us through that? So that's just because you don't want to test anything. You just want to see what the initial feedback is with no prompting.
That's right. Sometimes the property is extremely unique and it's very difficult to work out what I think that we should be guiding to the market. And So we'll just say, look, the vendor's asked me not to guide anything at this point. You know, what sort of price bracket are you looking in? Are you looking in that sort of 4.5 to 5.5? Because as you are aware, we legally can't guide anything where the bottom and top's outside 10% range. We're not allowed to say offers over. We're not allowed to say offers from. We're not allowed to say offers around. Right? So saying, putting a guide on it, the bottom and top's got to be within 10%. But if you could say, look, Maggie, are you looking between 4.5 and 5? Are you looking in that sort of range? Are you looking in that range? I'm not guiding the property. So you've got to be very careful. Of course, you've got to make notes of what you say to each purchaser. That's required for compliance every time you take an inquiry.
And that's Holly's job?
Yeah, I will pull up on the side of the road, take a screenshot of that inquiry. It gets mailed to Holly with notes every single inquiry that I take.
Say that again. So you'll get an inquiry, email will come through, and you're taking notes. You'll reply email to yourself, or just reply email to Holly and take the notes?
I'll generally share contact. I'll screenshot or I'll share contact to Holly with notes, forward it, mail, Holly, add notes. Holly, name is Maggie. She's looking at, price bracket 4.5 to 5. She's going to come back to me if she wants an inspection. I've questioned, is she looking in this particular range? I've not guided the property. So there's notes. So if someone says I didn't guide within top and bottom, that's not accurate because I would have the notes for compliance.
So if there's an agent listening to this and they're saying, Suzanne, I get 100 inbound phone calls each and every day. You're saying work hard, just do it.
Are you kidding? I'm running 50 listings. I have a project that's got 50 apartments and I'm calling that one listing, right? So you're saying if you can do it, there's no excuse? There's no excuse why you can't do it. You must get in the habit of doing it. I'm constantly pulling up on the side of the road. God knows what it looks like to be driving behind me. Seriously. I pull up, do this, do that, screenshot, send here. And, of course, you're supposed to turn the car off when you're doing that, of course. You're not supposed to be on the side of the road with the car running. And so you've got a
indicator.
Yeah, there you go. Pull over, off you go. Quickly turn it off and do what you've got to do and then get back on the road again. You have to do it for every single call. Sometimes if I'm racing to an appointment, I will ring Georgia and say, number ending with 788. Her name is Maggie. I need to give you feedback. It's about Bulls Road. And then when I get back to the office, what's the 788 and what did you say? So those notes are, mate, it's a military camp. It seriously is. So, but you have to because, we've had fair trading in our office twice in 12 months. And I say, guys, why are you here again? Seriously, why are you here again? They, Suzanne, it's your high dollar value and your high turnover. Great. So you do well and you're going to have people looking at you constantly. And they'll ask for the back end. On one property I gave them, there were 122 pages. They were there for hours and there was nothing that was of particular concern. So I think that's
a massive
credit to my team for backing me up. And actually the Fair Trading Officer said that I should start a training organisation. An RTO for agents. I said, are you kidding? I'm way too busy doing what I'm doing. I'm like, mate, please don't come back. I don't want to see your face for 12 months. Go away.
And I make a lot more money doing this.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I'm genuinely trying to get over what you've just said because that is just a profound level of detail orientation. It just takes a massive amount of effort. Like you said, you're living on the side of the road basically in order to actually execute on that.
Yeah.
Now returning back, because some agents will disagree with you on the first 2-week open home thing. You're saying for harder markets when you're trying to attract inquiry, having an open home is not going to be a helpful strategy. Another pricing strategy from you that I absolutely adore is this new guide contact agent. Or new guide inspect Saturday.
Yeah.
And then you don't have an open home time. It's
That's
basically saying call me.
Yep, that's right.
Because it says inspect Saturday, but there's no open home time, so it just brings out inquiries. So these are all strategies for campaigns that have gone stale or in tougher markets, basically, right?
Absolutely. And another great strategy that we use that I don't mind sharing with your viewers is that when you get lots of emails with no phone numbers, that's constant. Realestate.com, domain, whatever, you get constant emails, there's no phone number there. And we always say, please provide your phone number. People don't get annoyed with that when they want a guide on a property. They do get annoyed with it. But one thing that we do, and we were doing it once every 4 or 5 days, now we're doing it every second day. If there's been emails on a listing and we have not got a response back from that client that originally inquired, we go back to them 2 days later to say, you recently inquired on this property and we are showing the property a couple of times this week on private appointments. Would you like to view it? Are you interested? So once again, it's going back to the people with no phone number. Now, if they say they want to view the property, we say we will need your contact number, of course. And I'm going to call them to check that they're in the price bracket, of course. But A lot of agents burn inquiry on the internet because there's no phone number, and apart from doing a database post maybe a month later back to those clients,
they don't hear anything,
or a text message, they never go back to them. And the harder people get busy, right? They might be interested in the property. You can't just say, oh, well, we didn't hear back from them for 2 weeks. Clearly they're not interested. Your vendor doesn't want to hear that, do they? Your vendor wants to hear that you've done everything you can to try to get whatever inquiries you got to view that property. Because we know if we can get them through the door, it might be different to what they thought it was going to be. It might be might be their dream home. Let's get them through there. So sometimes people don't want to view a property when it doesn't have an open. So that's why we go back to them to say we are showing the property a couple of times this week, so they feel that they can piggyback with someone else.
They don't feel bad.
They're not intimidated by having to make a private appointment in case they don't think it's exactly for them, and sometimes they don't want to make a private appointment with an agent. So that to me is better than standing there on Saturday and hoping for people to turn up.
Hoping. There's two quotes here that dovetails off that concept. So you've said the owners want to know that you're doing something, not just sitting back and hoping, is part one. And then Sarah Hackett, who we had on here for our 6th episode, has said it wasn't until we started to communicate to our clients what we were doing and how we were doing it that we began to get an overwhelming amount of appreciation. So there's the only thing that's worse, basically what you're saying, than sitting back and hoping is actually doing all of this work and not telling your vendors.
Yeah.
Because
exactly.
that is going to be all the pre-work that builds up when you do deliver that final offer. They've got the context on how hard you've worked to get that.
Yeah.
And it's going to make them far more likely to be receptive, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, besides the fact that, all agents should call vendors after every inspection, on that day. I show a property, my vendor has had communication that day on how that inspection went. I say to my vendors when I first list the property, I may not get to you till 7:30 at night, but I'm going to get to you. Don't have any fear that I will not. I will always call you to let you know how the appointment went, even if it's like, no, they didn't like it. It's not for them. Or there's half a chance here. You're going to call them. You have to call them. But apart from that, you've got to be proactive every week doing. So we know about the face-to-face meetings. We've spoken about that. But I also like to give a formal report and formal ideas on what we're going to do moving forward. Not, sorry, only 3 people inquired this week. There were no phone numbers and none of them have got back to us. There's no hope there.
Yeah, you're reporting the news and it's depressing.
Mate, we've got to be upbeat here. We've got to show we are that line flying across the prairie. We're going to catch and kill and we're going to get the deal done. So sometimes you've got to do it a different way. So the email has got to be full of hope. Right? The email has got to say, we're doing this, we've reached out to buyers agents, we've rotated we've changed the way the prices, please approve our new strategy on the price guide on your property. Of course, the vendor should approve that. We've rotated your photos, we've done this, we've done that, and we're, looking to do a twilight open, We're going to do we're going to have a cheese platter and some champagne and do a twilight viewing. That would be on a property like this where we've actually done a champagne cheese viewing. So, it's exclusive. It's not necessarily public open, but it might be open to the people that have inquired. So it's a database open, and it's still kept exclusive. And those people are invited to have champagne and cheese and walk around the property fairly casually. So you've got to be constantly come up with ideas. And you're right. My naturopath gives me magnesium tablets to say, Suzanne, this will help you sleep. Nothing. I said to her, you've got to be joking. Nothing's going to help me sleep. I go to bed.
Results will help me sleep.
I go to bed and I go to sleep in 5 minutes. But I do wake up at 3 to 4 and I'll always say to you, I'm watching shows like Sons of Anarchy or, Animal Kingdom or whatever it is. I'm watching reruns of Yellowstone. I'm always doing that. But the reason I'm doing that is something's woken me up because I can't rest when I don't have someone's property sold and I know they're counting on me for a result. Now, is that a healthy way to be? Maybe not, but I do have a very high level of care for my clients.
Sometimes high performance isn't healthy. Another quote from you, Suzanne, you said, don't wait for other agents to tell your owners that something needs to be done to the campaign, basically, which is everything that you're saying there. In our industry, reality is, Suzanne, there's lots of training on how to go on the offense and attack another agent's listing. Maybe
Absolutely.
attack's a harsh word, but sort of targeting expireds and withdrawns.
Yeah.
you have a phenomenal ability to retain listings once you've listed them, basically. And you're not afraid to have really direct and honest conversations with your sellers about, realistically, what can another agent do? Look at all the things I'm reporting to you that I'm doing. I'm waking up at 3 a.m. stressing about you, like that other agent that's trying to sell you the dream. Because we know they're knocking. You have really direct, you almost disarm that before that blow up, before it happens, if that makes sense, regarding other agents swooping in.
I don't spend any time whatsoever on our CRM. No time, zero, zilch. Never have, never did.
Dollar productive advice from one of Australia's top agents in 2 minutes or less, texted to you each and every week for free. If you're wanting to grow your business, join our AgentClass video newsletter list, head to the first link in the description of this podcast, whether you're watching or listening, to check out a sample and sign up. Again, that's the first link in the description to view a sample and sign up to receive free value from us each week. 23rd Street is Australia's leading digital marketing agency, specializing in driving more growth for agents. Gavin Rubenstein says they're best in class, and Alex Jordan says they set the benchmark for others to aspire to. To book a call and start dominating your core market, go to 23rdstreet.com.au. That's street just ST. Again, 23rdstreet.com.au to book a call.
Well, I have to do that right from when I list a property, because a lot of other agents, when they go for a listing, they will ask a vendor, what other agents are you having interviews with? I never ask that question. I think it's a loaded question, and I think the only answers to it are detrimental to yourself professionally. I mean, if you're asking a vendor what other agents are coming in, the next sentence is going to be that you're going to try to run down those other agents. I find that actually abhorrent. I don't do that. I do not chase other agents' listings. I just have never felt the need to go down that path. But I do set these things up when I list the property. I went for a waterfront the other day. The vendors have indicated to me that I need to put that on my hot list because I'm listing it in January. And they said, Suzanne, when you were here the other day, you said if we're having other agents in, they will ask what other agents you've had in. And you said that's not a question you'll ever ask. Do you know what, Suzanne? We're actually not having any other agents in. We're comfortable to list with you. But that's not always the case. Sometimes when I go for a listing, there might be 4 or 5 or 6 other agents. And I will say to the owners, other agents will come and ask you what other agents you're having in here. You will not hear me ask that. That's a loaded question. And one thing another agent will say to you, if you mention Suzanne Hibberd's been here, they will say, Suzanne has too many listings and she can't service you. I want to tell you right now, I would never say that about another agent. Number one, I think it's dirty tactics. But number two, it's not true. If I couldn't take your listing on, I wouldn't be here for the market appraisal in the first place. I want your listing and I'm here to look after you. I'm very good at multitasking, and I would not be the successful agent that I am if I couldn't do those things. I also would like to say to you that agents that have few listings, let me ask you this. Are they going to be more inclined to do whatever it takes and take the time it takes to get you the result, or are they going to quickly try to sell your property? You tell me. Oh, I have projects where I don't get paid for 2 years. I am not chasing your commission, and if someone asks for a 6-month settlement, that I don't want to give it to you because I don't get paid. If that's the best buyer, that's what I'm going to present to you. So the agents with more listings are actually better to deal with in a harder market than the agents with a few listings. Please consider that. I won't take forever to explain this. I'll do it rather quickly. But I set it up right when I list the property. But yes, I've got listings at the moment. I'm 4 months down the track. I've got other agents chasing them. My vendor will say to me, oh, look, Suzanne, so-and-so called me the other day, but, we're not thinking of that. Hey, be careful of that question, or be careful of that statement.
How do you handle that?
They are thinking of that. They are. And I'd say, well, let's just put it this way. Stats are fantastic. So there are 11 apartments being sold in Cronulla since June, over $3 million, and I've personally sold 9 of them. If you think a better agent can get you a better result, I'm more than happy that you take the listing to them. I'm doing my absolute best to get your result. I have changed the strategy many times. You have a fantastic property, but the market is the downsizing market. They're not selling their homes. We have a shortage of them in the marketplace at the moment. I think sometimes you have to be prepared to let someone go, even when you feel you've got a really good relationship with them and you like them as people. I think sometimes you've got to feel to let them go. And actually on that particular situation, they rang me 2 days later and they said, look, Suzanne, because they actually then decided that, Suzanne, we think we might need to go in another direction. I had another chat with them. It was a very direct conversation, and I am fiery. I will be fiery in that conversation. I can't be, people say, look, I keep my
that's
cool,
authentic to you.
but I'm assertive and fiery because they are saying to me that what you're doing is not good enough for us, and I do take that to heart. I think the best agents, though, are passionate and fiery. I think everyone's different. There might be some real cool cucumbers out there that are top agents as well, and I'm sure there are.
Andrew Liddell
it's
comes
not
to
me.
mind.
It's not me. But you can't change the person that you are. So cooler heads prevailed. They came back to me a couple of days later and said, "Look, we know you're doing the best thing possible. Everyone we talk to says you're in good hands. Even our solicitor conveyancer has told us the same thing." But I'm not saying that occasionally I'd say, "Look, you know what? I don't think we can help you. Come and get your keys. We're happy for you to take it to another agent," because 10% of your clients are going to take up 80% of your time. Let them go. You can't keep everybody happy. Let them go.
So what if you're addressing a room full of high-performing agents and they're just cracking that $1 million mark, $1.5 million mark, Suzanne, and they have never had to do that with a client? Their business is now at a point, they've got 2 team members underneath them. They've never had to do this before. It's almost so foreign because they've built their business by chasing and pursuing everything and working with difficult personalities. And the concept of letting go is just so foreign to them. They've literally never done it before. Is your advice to them is if something is sticking around, if you're not going to get paid for it, if, it's just not working with the seller, don't be afraid to have that conversation basically. And how do you do it in a way that doesn't have them disgruntled and sort of bad-mouthing you in the market as well, saying, "Oh, so she took my marketing money and then, she told me to beat it"?
I don't know that you can ever prevent that long term. I think you could be as professional as possible and just say, "Look, we just don't think that we're the brand for you at the moment," especially where the person is just nasty. So my assistants say to me, "Suze, you have got rid of other clients for less than the way that this guy's treating you. You have got rid of clients for a lot less. His treatment of you is nothing short of disgraceful, and you've got to let him go." So sometimes I hang in there because I am very tenacious, but I learn more and more each year because I don't believe it doesn't matter, what figures you write. You've always got to learn things. You've got to keep your mind open to, what can I learn from other people? And John Brooks will always say, 10% of your clients take up 80% of your time. Set them free. Or another good one is, I don't get paid unless I sell this property. Do you understand that, Mr. Vendor? I don't get paid either. I'm on your team. I'm on team so-and-so. I don't know if you can't feel that, I don't know what I can say. But look, sometimes it's the personality of the vendor and you just think, mate, this guy, or lady, whoever it is, the treatment of my team, I will not have my team mistreated. It will be the first reason I'll ask someone to leave us. I will probably cop more than I would allow my team to take. And then sometimes it takes Holly and Georgia to say, "Suze, this guy, mate, this is not good." Because you're so strong and fiery, he just wants to belt you. Like he really I'm not talking physically. He does want to just constantly belt you, constantly undermine what you're saying, talk to you in such a bad way. You need to set him free. So, because
there's a tipping point where it starts spilling over to everything else you're doing in your day.
Absolutely.
And it's not just, it's not the cost of that commission that you're letting go.
It's everyone else's.
It's all the other stuff that they're impacting.
You know what's made me just say, you know what? I have no qualms. I've given back projects.
Can you give listeners context when you say give back a project? How many millions of dollars of sales are you just going there?
There might be. I think one of them at Caringbah, there would have been $40 million worth of sales.
And you're going there. You go.
I think we sold one apartment. The developer was atrocious. And that didn't end well. We left his brochures on the driveway. And then 6 months later, someone working for him says, "Oh, I'm looking for a development site. Suzanne, can you help me? I'm looking for a big development site. We're ready to buy. Oh, who do you work for? What's your name? Where are you from?" That's what I'm going to ask. "Oh, I work for so-and-so." "Yeah, well, you go and tell so-and-so you've just spoken to Suzanne, and there'll be no development site from any of my team for your company." Do you understand that? We don't say that lightly. Please go and tell your boss that. No qualms at all. I don't like bullies getting treated like letting people bully you and letting them get away with it. Give it back to them. I mean, okay, they're going to spread around that Suzanne threw the brochures on the driveway. Actually, it was Georgia that did that. Georgie, it was you.
Fiery Georgie.
But, she went up there and said, no, we're just, sometimes you've got to have your little secret list. That's the dead to me list. And that's going on the list. They're going on the list.
There's a very high-powered entrepreneur called Patrick Bet-David. He's wrote a whole book about the power of enemies and sort of having some people that really use enemies as motivation. It sounds a lot like that. Can I just say, Suzanne, if let's just say an agent's listening to this in the first half of the year, whenever they're listening to it, because they'll listen to it for years on, and let's just say they've presented a final offer. They've had the conversation the way that you've said earlier in this conversation. The vendor said back to them, oh, look, it's 5% lower than we were wanting. Why don't we take it off now and let's put it back on in spring? How would you react to the spring line?
Okay, so that's very common. That was coming up a fair bit earlier in the year. Let's put it back on in spring. Do you honestly think the market's going to be better in spring? What makes you think it's going to be better in spring? Are they talking about interest rate cuts? Let's just have a look at that. We have had a market that accelerated immensely prior to COVID. We've never had COVID before. We've then had massive acceleration after COVID. This is unprecedented. The growth we had after COVID is unprecedented. You are betting on a lot here. Is that a bet that you're prepared to take? Really? You're gambling here. And if what you can see for the people that were going to put the property on in spring, the market's gotten worse. Now you've got people saying, Suzanne, I think we'll take it off the market and put it back on in February. I literally was having that conversation around the corner with the lady that I came in with when you met me out the front. I do not feel that the market's going to be improved for quite some time. We're going to definitely need some interest rate cuts. And, I speak to many people, about this. I was lucky enough to get a conversation with Christopher Joy from Coolabah Capital.
Oh, wow.
Several weeks ago. My financial planner said, Suzanne, we want to put some money into Coolabah Capital. And I said, oh, Chris Joy's fund. And he said, do you know Chris Joy? And I said, oh my God, he's the Wolverine. I love him.
Wolverine.
And so when I was coming in for the meeting, my planner, James, said to me, Suze, you're not going to believe it. Chris Joy wants to pick your brain as well. So we've got half an hour with him and his team on a Zoom meeting on Thursday at 2:00. I love talking to him. But his prediction on the property market coming back is absolutely accurate. And, I just think he's just so visionary. Mark Burris is the same, they're just so visionary and you learn so much from them. And, so unless a vendor, you've got to always question, how serious is the seller about selling? Really? Do they really want to sell? Or are they just diddle-daddling around wanting some ridiculous price that you don't think you can achieve, but you hope you can? Let it go. As I say, Alan Williams saying, go and shake the tree and find another one.
Find another listing. Quote
That's
from
all you can do.
You've said, historically, the property market has followed broad cycles, although not in the boom-bust manner that some people believe. Rather, prices tend to surge strongly during a period of heightened activity, COVID, and then level out over a period of subdued trading conditions. It is therefore more a case of boom plateau. Yeah. I think if we sort of predate, look, this is not a space that I'm super educated in, but, GFC, everything onwards from that, it's been up and then flat, up then flat. Yes, we have some 10% drops, but it hasn't ever been like a 30% drop really in these areas. And so it's kind of saying to the vendor, if you've got an offer on the table in a year's time, if we're not in a boom period, it's kind of going, there's not a ton of evidence to say this is going to be drastically superior. Yeah,
it may be less.
Very well maybe less.
If you're prepared to take that risk, do it. But it may be less. Please. And say to people now, if they say put it back on in February, people earlier this year thought they put it back on in spring. The market's dropped further. Are you prepared to take that risk? That's up to you.
The market that we're in right now in certain states in Australia, obviously we've got listeners everywhere, so it's hard to pin, and you've said markets within markets, but in slower markets, you've sort of, quote from you again, when you know what you're doing and have access to the right people, then there is not always a need to put a property officially on the market. So it's this idea of instead of putting a listing to the market, crossing your fingers, hoping the right buyer walks in the door.
Sure.
Marcus Ciminello on Tom Panos' Real Estate Gym, shout out to our 3rd episode, go have a listen. But he said a very similar thing. He's happy to prospect for deals, Suzanne, because he knows at the moment in his market, and this is timely, but a buyer is probably the slightly more valuable piece of the deal puzzle. So he's like, if I've got a really strong buyer, I've probably got like 60 or 70% of a deal. So it's easy to have that piece first, then go get the other 30, 40%,
right.
if that makes sense.
That's right.
And you're pretty big on this as well, right?
Absolutely. So, sitting with your listings that you've got, great. You're hoping for buyers to come along. You're doing whatever marketing you can to attract those buyers. But where you've got red hot buyers and they can't find what they want, this can often be a development site. It could just be a house, could be an apartment. Go and find the listing. It's the old shake the tree. It's the Alan Williams shake the tree. So, you've got a great buyer that wants you to find them something. They've said to you, Suzanne, this is what we're looking for. Have you got anything coming up? Don't worry if you've got anything coming up. Go and find it. Don't wait. So you mightn't, agents that are starting out, I don't have many listings. How can I get listings? What can I do? You've got buyers. Work through my open for inspection list, work through my buyer list, find what a buyer wants, then go and find the listing. It doesn't have to be the other way around. Match the buyer to the property. Just find the property for them. Go and door knock, go and phone canvas. Do what you can. Ask the other agents in the office, have they looked at anything like that might suit? But you know what they want, go and find it. There's no excuse to say, I don't have a listing to sell them. In markets like this where buyers are few and you can't sell them what you've got, find them something. That's it.
And this comes back to, I've heard you say in the past as an agent, as a strong agent, this massive, you've called it a tremendous vision and intuition. So someone walks through an open home, say, and the house that they're in doesn't suit them. You have this, your brain has this ability to go,
I know exactly what they
2
want.
years ago, I've appraised that. And it's an appraisal and they weren't even thinking of selling, and you already know, you've earmarked, that's a phone call that you can make.
Yep, absolutely. I did that last year. I've got a high net worth individual, wanted me to find him something. What he was looking for was not on the market. Clearly, I had to find this guy something, and I knew he'd pay good money for it because he wanted he wanted a property in a particular street and in a particular area. And actually, where he got me first to find properties for him in one particular area, that actually changed, and we actually went from North Cronulla to South Cronulla. And I went and approached some people that I knew were looking at apartments with me, and I knew that they potentially would sell that house. Never been through the house. And I went and spoke to them and I said, look, I've got a high net worth individual, wants to buy your house, and, can I get an agency agreement contract to bring him through? Suzanne will only sell if the price is premium. I said, I'm sure I can get that. Give me a go. Got the clients through. The client spoke to me and said, on a non-disclosure agreement here, but let's say the figure was 8 million. High net worth individual said, what do you think I should pay? I said, I think it's going to be at least 8, fictitious figure, of course. And he said, I'll give you 8.5, da-da-da. I went to the clients, obviously fictitious number again, but I went to the clients and said, this is one offer I'm going to make to you. It is not an offer where you're going to be coming back to me with a counter. It's a one-time offer. The offer is, gave him the offer, and the husband said, bugger you, Suzanne, now we've got to sell. And the wife was crying with joy. And it settled 3 weeks later. And that same high net worth individual gave me something else very large to sell for him. So once again, you've got a buyer with a need. Doesn't matter if it's a high net worth individual or someone looking for a unit in a particular street for $1 million. Go and find them what they want. That's the best way. If you're not great at listing properties and you're starting out and you're really struggling, work with buyers and go and find them something. So busy agents like me, there's no agent that can say, when you're running as many listings as I am, that every single buyer that you meet at a property or an open house, you can service all their needs. I mean, come on, that's impossible. You can farm that out to your team to assist, etc. But, for the younger agents, ask the senior agents, is there a call list I can ring? Then go and find listings from the buyers. List something, get it together. Because there's always someone out there that wants to sell.
You've said there's so much opportunity left on the table. So whether you're someone that's within a team, that's a great strategy. Or if you're a newer agent, like you said, ask for a list as well and get cracking. Before we get to the final question here, Suzanne, I'd love to ask you, I've potentially saved the best to last here. For sales agents listening that are high performing, they're wanting to scale and grow their GCI. They've identified that they want to move up their average sale price a little bit in order to do that. Higher average sale price, same fee, same percentage fee, meaning they're earning more per sale. And so they kind of go, okay, I want to get my hands on some newer stock in my area because that will typically have a higher price. The people coming through might have trade-ins, which I can sell. So it's a win-win. So they sort of strike up some relationships with some developers and they're hunting for like brand new homes like this one that are furnished and ready to sell and do an auction campaign. And what they end up with instead is a block of land, a developer saying, all right, here you go, mate. Here's some renders, chuck those on realestate.com and domain and off you go. And they're like, okay, yes, I'll do that. But they've never actually done an off the plan house sale before. So they've got renders on realestate.com and domain, some brochures, a block of land. The developer builder won't get started until there's a contract in place and they're fielding inquiry and they have really no idea what to do because they can't do physical inspections, can't do open homes. What's your best, because you're one of the foremost experts in Australia on like this sales process. What would you do if you're them? So for a single luxury off the plan home, it's a block of land, renders online, what should that agent do? Like what's the right sales process? Do they get the buyer in the office for like a meeting with the developer? What's the next steps once someone is interested?
Look, I just see so many mistakes. I see unit blocks getting marketed with the words off the plan. Do you know I would never do that? Why
What's attractive about that? Yeah.
Well, it's not attractive about off the
No, there's
plan
nothing,
when you've
yeah.
got the building commissioner with problems with building, especially with class 2 building works, and people don't want to buy off the plan. So why would you say off the plan when you're selling a block of units? It's ridiculous. You want to attract inquiry. So people ring up and say, oh, can I come and look at that unit on Saturday? Oh, Beryl, it's not built yet, but listen, we would love to do a presentation for you. Do you know who's building that development? And, they say, no, tell me a bit about it. Let me tell you all about the builder developer. He's just won some major awards. Look, I know buying off the plan can be scary, and I know why, but let me tell you about this guy. Let me tell you about this company, why I'm representing them, why I'm so passionate to work for them. Buying off the plan can be fraught with danger, but let me tell you why I've aligned myself and my brand with this guy. Over the years, people say to me, Suzanne, you sell the best projects and you have some of the nicest listings. We know that if your brand is on a project that you must really rate the developer. And I go, what? That's more me summing up the person I'm working for and if I can work for them. And if I'm confident that we can get the job done together. Because when you're doing project marketing, especially in a block of units, I say to them, go home and tell your wife you found a new wife because you're in it for the long haul here. And it's not one transaction. You're not just selling someone's house. You've got to be confident that you can, that you can both work together for a long period of time. So, but it's not easy selling stuff off the plan.
I think everything you said is so important because some agents listening might go, oh, the glitz and glam of off the plan, you've said 40 million building that you've handed back. Oh, that'd be nice, $40 million worth of sales. But it comes with it's fraught with so much complexity. It's just stick to what you know potentially is the advice.
I think so. Look, if it's a duplex and the developer's got some a track record, you can certainly make sure that his past portfolio could be shown to the clients. If you're going to take on this duplex off the plan and you're not an off the plan person, show the developer's past projects, maybe get them to meet the developer. Is the developer the builder? I love it where the builder's the developer. That's not always the case. Not that I'm saying that they don't do a great job if it's not, but I just love it where the builder's the developer because there's one person involved. So, there's ways that you can do it. It's easier on a duplex than it would be on a block of apartments.
Oh yeah, I think there's a lot of agents that wouldn't even dare to take on a block of apartments if they've never done it before. They'd just
It's not what it appears to be.
So it's good advice that people need to hear. Final question here, Suzanne. If an agent listening, they've got their practice to a point where they're earning $1 million in GCI, which is a phenomenal achievement. It puts them in the top 10% of the industry. And the way that they've got there is they aren't bad people, but in certain scenarios, they might do what is most convenient to get the deal together. Maybe not always what is the right thing by their seller. So they'll get,
short-term result instead of the long-term.
Whatever is more simple, getting the buyer up or the seller down. And they sort of, they know they're not bad people, but they'll do it every now and again to bring a deal together. What would be your advice to them? Because you've built this reputation, which has people coming back to you. You don't sell it to the buyer that has the trade in. You sell it to the buyer who's going to pay the most. There's an amazing story I'd love for you to tell because there was a $2.2 million deal. You had two buyers, one out of area and one local with the trade in. And I think this perfectly epitomizes this whole concept of playing the long game.
That is an example of looking at the long term rather than taking the short term deal. And that is where it was a unit in Cronulla several years ago. I had a buyer at I think I had two buyers at 2.15 million. And the owner said, look, how are we going with it? I said, well, look, I'm not at the end of negotiating here. Let me see what I can do. And one of the buyers said to me, if you get it for us for 2.15, we will give you our property to sell. And I said, well, I would love to sell your property, but my obligation is to my vendor. I must leave no stone unturned to get the best price possible. I went back to the other buyer. They were from Picnic Point, out of the area. There was no listing that I was going to get from them. I got them up to 2.2. I sold the apartment to them, but the other people at 2.15, 2 to 3 years later, called me in to sell their house. And they said, we will never forget that although we didn't get that apartment, you worked for your vendor. And we will never forget that because we would expect you to do the same. So sometimes clients, they sort of say, look, get it for me for 4.5 and I'll give you this to sell. They're not all trying to bait you, but some are. You have to be very wary of that. Some are just being like, look, we know you're a good agent. We're going to give you our property to sell, but get it for us for this price. But some are intentionally, get it for me for this, you'll be definitely getting my listing. You have to be able to read into what they actually mean here. Are they paying you a compliment because they're going to give you the listing anyway, or are they baiting you? And the agent that falls for that, half the time that client won't give you the property because they'll know that you did not do the right thing by the other vendor. One thing I absolutely pride myself on, it's just integrity is just so important. You have to be able to sleep of a night. You have to know that it's not always about the money. You have to know that you've done the right thing. And I've lost a lot of money in deals where my integrity has come first and foremost, and then I've not got the deal together. But I can sleep well of a night. Well, not always. I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Let's not kid ourselves. But no, I know I've done the right thing by the client. And then they refer lots of other clients to me. And then you get this reputation for, same as you spending marketing money where you're promoting yourself. I often say that. Let's do a marketing campaign that gets your property sold. Let's not do a marketing campaign that gets me more listings because I've already got plenty of listings. And I get plenty of people to call me in because of my results, not because I blow people's marketing money promoting myself. Let's do a marketing campaign, save you money. Let's do it. And I often throw some skin in the game as well. I'll throw this in and this in provided I sell the property, or I'll throw these things in regardless whether I sell the property because I want to put some skin in the game as well. Sometimes you've got to judge the personality of your vendor, and sometimes that they want to feel that they've got a bit of a win as well. So, yeah, knowledge, performance, tenacity, they're and integrity.
They're the values.
They are just so important.
I think that's the perfect note to end on. Sort of do the right thing, prioritize the long-term gain over the short-term win.
Yeah,
Suzanne,
exactly.
thanks so much for being here.
I'm really humbled to be invited. So thank you so much.
No, of course.
I really appreciate it.
Woohoo!
Thank
It's
you.
in the books. Let's go. A massive thank you again to Suzanne for taking the time to come on. And a quick reminder, if you're looking to receive free weekly value from us straight into your text inbox, head to the first link in the description to check out a sample and sign up to our AgentClass video newsletter. Again, that's dollar productive advice from Australia's top agents in 2 minutes or less. And if you're wanting help with your social media, reach out to the team at 23rd Street. See you in the next one.